Don't allow idle companions to lead you astray. To earn tomorrow, you got to learn today.
And a very special good Monday morning to all of you. It's the day before the holiday, the Republic Day holiday. Of course, we're not going to be here tomorrow, but we are going to be back here on Wednesday morning, bright and early at 6 o'clock. All right, so take some time off tomorrow and enjoy the day. And if you have to go to the beach, go to the beach and go take a walk around the savannah and so on, and just take in the sights and scenes of Trinidad and Tobago, all right? Okay, so we're moving on. So we are just shy of a month into the new school term now. As you know, things started off a bit rocky this morning. We do have on the line the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, Mr. Martin Lumpkin. Mr. Lumpkin, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Hopkinson, and happy Republic Day to Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for having us once again.
Of course, Mr. Lumpkin. Well, Mr. Lumpkin, as I said earlier, things started off a bit rocky when it comes to the beginning of the new school term. A few schools were affected, and one of them that has been in the news over the past week or so is the St. George's College. What's the status at this time? Have the problems been addressed? Can students return to the school once again, and their education is not going to be interrupted?
Well, at St. George's College, and before I address what's taking place at St. George's College currently, I did predict at the beginning of the term that it would be a rough start to the academic year, because we had looked at the situation, we had assessed the situation, and the feedback we would have gotten, or lack of feedback, from both the Ministry of Education and to a point the division, showed that there would be challenges at the start. One such school, as you would have pointed out, was the St. George's College. Now, a little putting it into context, the Honorable Minister of Education would have had a ribbon cutting ceremony, a fanfare, big public relations gimmick to show that St. George's College was ready for reoccupation at the original compound. And history would have shown that the Ministry of Education did not put all in place to have the school fully reoccupied. Forms 1 and 2 started the term at the new compound. 3 to 6 remained at home for the first 3 days. And this was the reason for it was the so-called orientation. But in our estimation, the orientation could have taken place with the entire population being on the compound. So that was an excuse in terms of the school not being prepared. To this date, we can say some level of preparedness have been completed. The entire population is on compound at this moment, and all teachers have been reporting for duty from that period onward. But we still have issues that are plaguing us. One of the major issues is the ventilation. As you know, with the high temperatures, and throughout Trinidad and Tobago, we have schools with that challenge. But with St. George's College, it is a perennial, and it is really bad at this time. And the labs are not prepared. The labs are not fit for occupation at this time, so there are no labs taking place. There has been a report of rodents running across the classroom. One such report that we would have gotten would have been a rat running over the feet of one of the teachers. And then you have other issues you would have seen the flooding. And let me say something. Last week, there was, I think it was Monday, was it? Or Tuesday, there was a release by the Ministry of Education. And every time I think about it, my blood boils over because of the nature of it and the fact that the Ministry of Education was putting a blame game, and they were diverting from the issues. They were blaming the staff for a number of issues at St. George's College and not addressing the real issues of the infrastructure, the Honorable Minister would have said that the students are happy to be back at the compound. That may be so to a point, but I can tell you the educators are not fully pleased at this time, such that they have started to wear red, and they would vacate the compound. They have not walked out. They have vacated the compound during the luncheon period, which they have all right to do. So the fact that this is a political football that is taking place at St. George's College. We at Tutor are not about being, exorbitant or having to come out and play in public relations. We are about the business of education and preserving the rights of our members. And so St. George's College, as a flagship, one of the ministry's flagship schools, a government secondary school, which performs highly, we are saying, let us forget all the politics and who want to sabotage, and so, because the educators are there to educate the students.
Yeah.
So when we talk 80 fans, was only 32, and they were at the Valsayn campus, locked up. And as far as we're aware, it wasn't brought across to
But Mr. Lumpkin, speaking about this college, because I know that a substantial amount of funds were allocated to refurbish, fix things at this educational institution. What is it? Is it an issue of accountability? Because you may get the impression, and people may get the impression, that the Ministry of Education did not get value for money. Because if you're spending so much money and then you have so much problems plaguing the school, then something has gone awry.
In a number of instances, we do not have the monitoring mechanisms, the proper monitoring mechanism. Even in the awarding of contracts, we have to sometimes wonder why it is such at a high cost. We could speculate that because contractors are not paid on time and they have to use their overdraft, that sometimes they put it into the billing. However, we are concerned because the ministry would have said to the nation in the release that over 10 million was spent on the first phase, and a further, I think, 1.6 million, if I'm not mistaken, is supposed to be spent on the second phase. That's $11.6 million to be spent on St. George's College. And they are yet to see some of the structures, infrastructural issues being addressed in a proper and timely fashion. The area, we were told that one student was injured on the compound due to materials being left on the compound after the works were done. And so all of these things, we have a unit in the Ministry of Education that is supposed to be monitoring and ensuring that we get value for money. And we are hopeful. We are very hopeful that that unit will do its job. But in the area of procurement as well, things need to be tightened up in our estimation.
You know, over the past few weeks since the beginning of the new school term, we have been really looking at the statements coming from the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, and also statements and responses coming from the Ministry of Education. And recently there was even an editorial speaking about this conversation, if I can put it that way, this tit for tat that has been happening between the association and the Education Ministry. But has there been any sort of consultation, discussion between the Education Ministry and Tutor in an effort to resolve some of the problems that we have been seeing in education in general?
I will say this up front. Tutor has always been open to dialogue, negotiations, to meeting with whatever stakeholders, especially the Ministry of Education and the division, to have our education system run as smoothly, efficiently, and effectively as possible. There may have been in the past perceptions that Tutor is an obstructionist and that Tutor is only there to shut down and to highlight the ills of the system. I will tell you this, that Tutor is not there for that reason. Our first aim and objective in our Constitution is promoting the cause of education. And when we promote the cause of education, it is for all who are involved in education, mainly for our members, but for the students who are our clients as well. And so Tutor has always been open to dialogue. And we send to the Ministry of Education. We do meet with some of the officials. I will admit there are officials in the Ministry of Education who are open to meeting with Tutor. But there are those who feel that they do not need to. But we have to remind them that under the law, they are supposed to meet and treat with the recognized majority union. And so we are calling again on the officials. Whenever we send correspondence, sometimes it's not acknowledged, but we are willing to meet. We are supposed to have a statutory monthly meeting with the permanent secretary, and we are calling on having those meetings once again. We have individual matters that we have not had for a couple of months as yet. We usually have technical meetings with the Chief Education Officer. We would have meetings occasionally with the Honorable Minister and the Honorable Secretary. And we are calling for a more open and constant dialogue with these officials so that we can assist, because we are on the ground and we know what is taking place. Sometimes these officials are in their air-conditioned unit in tower, whatever, or in the division, and are not fully aware of what is taking place and making decisions for persons who are affected on the ground without taking into consideration what they are going through at this.
Mr. Lumpkin, please stay with us for a few more minutes. We are going to a very short break, everybody. We're coming back.
You must be intelligent. It's essential, very essential, to have your credentials. But if you're block-headed, learn to be fired. Children go to school and learn well. Otherwise, later on in life, you're going to catch...
Welcome back, everybody. You know, sometimes you hear or you're so familiar with something, and then all of a sudden you hear something, and it's like, where did that come from? You heard what Sparrow said just now? Block-headed like a mule, you know. I never heard that. And I've listened to that song so many times. All right, so very special good morning to the mighty Sparrow. Yeah. So we are continuing our discussion on education. We were just discussing with the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, Mr. Martin Lumpin, the situation at the St. George's College. Well, I know, Mr. Lumpkin, and thank you very much for staying with us, that a few other schools have been affected. There were some challenges at the beginning of the new school term. Can you give us also a status report on some of these schools that were also affected?
Okay, thank you once again. Before I get there, please allow me, Mr. Hopkinson.
Yes.
One of the major issues affecting all schools in Trinidad and Tobago is ventilation, that high heat, the high temperatures that we've been having over the last few weeks. And we are looking forward to the Ministry of Education engaging in stakeholders to assist. The ministry would have spoken about the Adopter School, and we're really hoping that that program can help to address, because if you are going to install cooling units, now fans will just blow hot air. They can, be a short term, but in the long term, we believe that classes need to be air conditioned. And if you do that, then you have a subsequent problem with electrical and upgrade, and which will take a lot of money. But the Ministry of Education has to take the forefront in this opportunity, and the opportunity to take, the lead in it, and to probably engage in stakeholders, past peoples, etc., etc.
But Mr. Lumpkin, but before you move away from that issue, if now we're asking, and rightly so, if now we're asking for air conditioning units to be placed at schools, of course, you know, Mr. Lumpkin, more than anyone else in Trinidad and Tobago, that schools are already faced with horrible financial problems. And so if you put in these air conditioning units now, it makes things even financially harder for some institutions.
It will, and it will call for proper planning an institution of this. Now, it doesn't mean that every day it will be run, but the ventilation has to be looked at as well, how the windows and so are implemented as well. I can tell you, for example, in my previous school in Granville RC, we were decanted and prefab structures, the containers were put into place, which means that it has to be air conditioned. Rooms have to be air conditioned. But the way they put in the windows as well, they only put it on one side of the classroom. So if the air condition shuts down, there's no way to open get airflow, proper airflow through the classrooms. So we have to shut down. So if we are doing that, it calls for proper planning and to make sure that everything is put in place and that budgetary as well too. Electricity is paid for. But we really need to address this because our students, our teachers are under really by 10 o'clock. They are really in an oven. And this does not make for proper learning and teaching. And so it has to be addressed. Extractor fans could be put in, but it'll be noisy. Fans could be put in as well. It's going to blow hot air. It may give us sort of a relief, but there must be some proper cooling units addressed. Now, in the interim, we are advising our members, our teachers, to ensure that they are well hydrated and that their students are well hydrated. So in between breaks, there may be the need to allow the students to rehydrate themselves or hydrate themselves properly. Principals can adjust their timetables in order, the class teachers can, with the advice of the principals, adjust their timetables such that more regular breaks are given or that subjects are timetables such that it maximizes the time and would take into account the heat. For those schools that can allow students to go under a tree for a lesson and so, but you would imagine those in the city areas and the town areas are more challenged because of the number of concrete structures, which will then, add to the heat and so. But it is a major problem that is taking place throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and something needs to be done. We're in the third, going into the fourth week. We still have roughly 10 weeks. We need to address this, and we understand that it's going to get hotter next month.
Yeah. What about the situation at the Mount Hope School? Because I know that they started off the beginning of the new school term. There was a protest on that morning. Have things improved at the institution?
No, actually, Mr. Hopkinson, it has gotten worse. With the recent downpour last week, they would have experienced 2 days of flooding, such that they had to vacate the areas and have the students in an area that was not affected by the flooding. 2 days they had that with those torrential downpours. They have experienced even worse because there was in one of the blocks, the concrete piece of concrete fell. And so they continue to have the issue. One of the teachers in putting on the light switch in part of the staff room got a shock as well. A teacher was bitten by a wasp, I believe it is, and some of the students have continued to experience some medical challenges as well too. And so the staff at Mount Hope Secondary has proffered a refusal to work. Last week, they would have instituted and implemented a refusal to work. So that takes place at this time, and the agency, the OSH inspectors are supposed to visit the school very shortly to have that redone. So Mount Hope continues to be an issue or a school that continues to have issues. And as the name sounds, we thought we would have hope, but at this time, there's little to no hope for that school. There are other schools that are experiencing problems at this time. And some people may ask, how come it's being highlighted at this time? Because our educators, our administrators, our principals, we must, and supervisors have been trying their utmost best to have schools reopen, stay open, but they are under challenges because the Ministry of Education has not been implementing preventative measures or having infrastructural works done to prevent further, and we understand because of the financial implication. Yeah. But good thing at the scenes, you have San Fernando Central government that is facing some serious infrastructural challenges at this time. We have other primary schools. We have schools that have started to be rebuilt, and it's stopped, and they are decanted at the various places. Blanchisseur's RC, they are with Blanchisseur's Secondary in the hall for roughly, I think, 8 years. Then you have Presal Government Primary School. You have Rosilac Hindu. You have other schools, secondary schools, St. Joseph Secondary, Barataria North Secondary, Superior East Secondary. All of these schools are trying their best to remain open, but things are bursting at the seam at this time. And it's affecting both the teachers and the students.
Yeah. Mr. Lumpkin, do you have a budget wish list as the finance minister prepares to deliver his budget presentation next week? Because when we do speak about the education sector, it seems that it is, and I hope that I'm not being dramatic, but it seems to be a dire situation at a number of schools in Trinidad and Tobago. So in light of that, in context of that, what would you like to see being allocated to education in the finance minister's budget?
Oh, we would have a long list, Mr. Hopkinson, that could probably take the rest of the show. However, we are cautiously optimistic that education will continue to get the lion's share. However, we have to keep in mind that the Ministry of Education services from ECCE to tertiary education as well. So we are hoping that the budgetary allocation will be increased so that the major issues can be addressed. Infrastructural issues in terms of upgrades and filling of vacancies. The ECCE sector needs to be addressed as well too. And we're hoping that the legislation could change very quickly so that these teachers at the ECCE centers can get a certain level of tenure of workmanship and work, and that other areas in terms of, but infrastructure seems to be the major issue at this time. But we also have furniture. Schools have not gotten furniture for the last 10 years. And there needs to be upgrade of furniture ever so often, if not every year, every 2 years, because furniture have a life span as well too. And then there are in some instances where they are broken down due to whatever reason. But there also has to be funding for schools, direct funding and increased funding. So what has taken place in the secondary school is that their allocation has been cut ever so often, but there is an increase in student population in some schools as well. And so you have an increase in population, but you have a decrease in funding. And they do not always get their total funding. It's distributed in terms, and sometimes they will get 2 out of the 3. Primary school, they don't get their direct funding in time. And there are consumables that the school has to purchase in order to continue. We are hoping that the GATE program can be expanded such that our educators can access GATE in order to reskill and retool themselves for the classrooms. As you are aware, education is a dynamic sector, and teachers, educators have to be reskilled and retooled and keep up with the times. We are hoping that that could be included as well too. And the Teaching Service Commission can be given more resources such that they can carry out their mandate in terms of interviewing and other aspects that they need to. But within the education system, we are hoping that budgetary allocations would allow for proper execution of programs as well too. The Ministry of Education has initiatives, and one of the challenges within the schools is funding for those initiatives as well too. We would like to have sports day and going out on educational field trips and so, but that's a challenge as well too for the schools at present. And we are hoping that budgetary allocations will allow for proper funding of schools.
Yeah. Martin Lumpkin, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. Mr. Lumpkin, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much. We wish you all the best. And, the budget is coming up, so I suspect we are going to be speaking soon again, Mr. Lumpkin. We'll try not to wake you up too often in the morning, right?
That's fine. I'm always up for the media, the morning edition. Thank you very much for having us.
Bye for now, Mr. Lumpkin.
Bye for now.
Bye. Okay. All right, so it's time for a quick break. We do have this image for you, but we're taking some of your calls after the break. You're calling us on 623-1711. The extension, it's 1995. We're coming back, everybody.
Illiteracy.